What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about the newest film that was just released this weekend from Blumhouse. And I've talked about Blumhouse several times on my channel. I actually did a video not that long ago talking about some of my favorite Blumhouse projects. And I've been very harsh on Blumhouse over the years because they've put out some really mediocre content, but they've also put out some decent content in the history of their production company. And I've seen the trailer for this movie a few times. And it wasn't like I watched the trailer and thought that this was going to be some sort of immaculate masterpiece, but I did find it to look much more interesting than a lot of the material that they've put out previously. And because of how small scale the story and idea is, I was hoping that they would be able to nail the execution. And the movie I'm going to be talking about with you today is The Woman in the Yard. The Woman in the Yard is directed by Jaume Collet-Serra. A mysterious woman repeatedly appears in a family's front yard, often delivering chilling warnings and unsettling messages, leaving them to question her identity, motives, and the potential danger she might pose. So like I said, I did not expect this movie to be a masterpiece by any means. I was really looking forward to watching it in hopes that the execution would be really great. And what I will say about this movie is I'm conflicted about it because on one end there are a lot of things to really like about this movie. I really appreciate what the film is symbolic of. I think that the messaging of the movie, there's a lot of thought that went into how that was going to be conveyed. It's very well shot. There's a lot of really cool editing moments and a lot of really interesting attention to detail when it comes to where the camera is placed. And there's also some moments of really great acting in this where I feel like the lead performance especially has some moments where she really shines. The problem is this feels like it could be a 30-minute short film. There's so much that I felt like was missing from character development, building and growing this lead character, and doing a lot of things that I feel like could have made the movie very special. And instead, like I left feeling kind of empty emotionally, despite the fact that this movie is searching for a very visceral, hard-hitting gut punch. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit when I break the movie down for you today. So at the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to Ramona by Danielle Deadwyler. And we see her wake up in her bed and she's watching this video on her phone of who we assume is her husband, telling her these dreams that he had about this farmhouse that they're living on, and that he's so excited at the prospect of getting it to be a wonderful home that he knows that it can be for him, his wife, and their two children. And we see her wake up and she has this horrible injury to her leg. She's walking around on crutches, and we're introduced to her two young children. She has a son who's probably, I'm guessing, early teenage years, and then a daughter who's probably between the ages of like 6 and 8 years old. And we see the son, and throughout the morning we notice things that he's stumbling upon, which is the electricity's out in the house, there's no more food left for the dog, and all of these little things around the house are seemingly falling into disarray. And we can tell that it's partially because the mother is out of it from her injury, but we also learn that the father died in a car crash, that him and Ramona were both in the car together. She managed to survive and he passed away. And so we see kind of this disrupted family dynamic early on in the movie, and their day is playing out, and we find out that because the power is out, Ramona's cell phone has died, so she's not able to call the power company to figure out why the power has gone out at the house, and things just progressively are getting worse and worse. Well, all of a sudden the son notices that a woman in all black is sitting in the front of their house in this chair. She's come out of nowhere, and Ramona decides, I'm going to go out and confront her. And so she does, and the woman says some incredibly strange things about, like, she knows that Ramona has called out to her, she knows about the situation of her husband's death, and that essentially she has come to collect. Now, collect what? We're not 100% sure. And so she ends up coming back inside the house with her kids. And the entirety of the film is this mother who has just lost her husband in a very tragic accident, is going through all of this, has to try to fight for survival against whoever this woman is and keep her children safe. Like I said, conflicted about this movie because there's a lot of really good things going for it, but I also feel like it doesn't nail the execution in a way that's completely and totally satisfying. But for starters, I want to talk about the lead performance in this movie. Danielle Deadwyler does a phenomenal job in this film. I was so incredibly impressed with her performance. She clearly has gone through a lot. Her character has been through the most horrible tragedy you can imagine, and she really does a great job of showcasing those emotions through like the little things happening around the house. And there's this sort of conflicted feeling of like, I have to be a mother, but I'm also a human being with emotions. And so when things sort of start to fall by the wayside and things become really chaotic when it comes to just keeping the house in order, she gets really upset about it. And we see her lash out and get really angry. And I think her performance is really one of the best elements of this movie. It's really what kept me invested. The actors who play her kids, sometimes in Blumhouse movies, child actors can be really bad. I thought these kids did a decent job, and the dynamic of the family felt real, and it was something that I could appreciate. The visuals in this movie were probably the most impressive element of the entire film. Blumhouse doesn't always captivate me visually, but there are some really unique scenes in this movie that I feel like capture the headspace of the lead character really well. There's these moments where like she's sitting in a room and we'll see like reenactments of the car crash with like glass coming into the frame. There's some really cool transitions through like up through the staircase, the way that the camera looks when our lead character is looking at herself in the mirror. And there's so many moments like that where I'm like, this is a Blumhouse movie, but they're really paying very close attention to detail in the cinematography, which is something you don't normally get in a movie from Blumhouse. So that's something else that I really appreciated about this movie a lot, was the attention to detail in the visual presentation. And I also really liked the look of the woman in the yard. She's very mysterious. It felt kind of like it could have been like a Twilight Zone episode, or just like one of these little one-off TV shows of like this isolated incident in this one location and what's going to happen, who is this person, but wrapped up in a way that it's like clear, concise, and to the point. And I did like the messaging of this movie of what it's like to experience trauma, and also like depression, suicidal ideation, this whole thing where like being a parent, you're expected to kind of push all other emotions out the window and just be there and present for your children. And one of the things that I really liked about this movie is that they pay very close attention to our lead character and when she's going through those things and just what you would react like in that type of a situation. And I think that a lot of the emotions surrounding those parts of the movie are really great, and it's something I didn't expect to get out of a Blumhouse movie. I would have never expected this film to take that direction. The problem is a lot of it at the end of the day feels hollow. I felt like this character was very underdeveloped. We get like her husband took on this huge project where he's trying to build up this farm and make it a place for his family, and we learn through small bits of dialogue that she was an artist pursuing her career in painting. But we don't get much more other than that. It's just like she's upset because they moved out of the city and was really bummed that she couldn't pursue her career, and that she felt like she was giving up her identity in order to live in this place and do this thing that her husband wanted her to do. And I feel like that's a relatable struggle. But there's so many other points in the movie that just feel like bloated, mundane runtime that we don't really get any more information about her or about her relationship with her kids or any of these little things that could have really built up to an intense emotional punch. And instead, it was just cyclical scenes, I feel like, of the same type of scares. And there are a lot of like cliched scare moments in this that are something that you would come to expect from a Blumhouse movie. And there's also a lot of really idiotic decisions, especially when it comes to the family dog. And I get you're in like a specific headspace with a lot going on, but like you'll see when you watch the movie, there's just motivations of characters in particular moments that like I get, you're having lapses in memory because of what you've experienced, but like some of it just didn't work for me, and I really was not a fan of the end of the movie. I get what the director was trying to say with the end of the film, but it very much rushes its way to the finish line in a way that I felt like was incredibly unsatisfying, especially with like the really heavy feeling that the director is trying to go for to convey to you as an audience member. Like there's a way that you could sit with that and let it really stew with a viewer where I feel like it would be incredibly effective. But in this particular case, it just didn't work for me like that. And I don't think this by any means is the worst thing Blumhouse has released. It's honestly very watchable, and I think it's really really commendable what the director is trying to say with this. And I do think if any of this interests you, it's worth checking out solely because this is doing a lot more than what a normal Blumhouse movie would do. And I think there's enough to take away here to make it an enjoyable experience. So have you seen The Woman in the Yard? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie had a lot of really cool things going for it, but I do wish that they would have changed little things about it to make it a really successful viewing experience. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.